As you know, a huge majority of people, mostly comic readers, would classify a superhero as an almighty being with magic-like powers such as Spider-Man and his webbing abilities, Deadpool and his foul-mouthed comebacks, and Batman with his fancy equipment, all used to defeat supervillains who threaten to destroy our lives and the planet as we know it with the use of superpowers or weapons of mass destruction. These powers can be translated from the comic world into reality, with superhero-like powers to money, resources, social standing, and reputation ranging from one spectrum to the other. Seems balanced. Well, the problem with this is, oftentimes the hero in the case does not always have the equivalent power over the villain. Hence, the problem, which brings me to the point of the video today. This is the story of Rob Billet, or someone I would personally call the modern-day real-life Superman. It all started when an American chemical company called DuPont that was based in Rob Billet's hometown of Parkersburg, West Virginia in the United States. In 1941, DuPont discovered and started to produce a little something called Teflon. If you don't know what Teflon is, take a look at the cooking pans in your kitchen. It's basically a chemical makeup that contains a lot of carbon-fluorine molecules that allows to make a coating that is resistant to heat, water, and other elements, which made cooking easier and more effortless. I know what you're thinking, I didn't come here to learn biology, but just bear with me, okay? Anyways, this discovery made DuPont one of the main distributors of Teflon products, which also made them very, 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 very wealthy, as it was distributed to practically every corner of the United States. Why does this matter? Well, it turns out that this Teflon manufacturer had a very sinister secret that it was hiding from the world, which we will get to later. Fast forward to the year of 1997. In comes Robert Billet, aka our modern-day Superman. Robert Billet was a corporate defense lawyer in Cincinnati, Ohio. If you don't know what that is, it's basically lawyers who represent and defend companies who are caught doing shady stuff. Around this time, Robert was approached by a lone farmer who lived on a farmland not too far from the DuPont chemical plant in Parkersburg named Wilbur Tennant. It had come to Mr. Billet's attention that Mr. Tennant was seeking a lawyer to help him prosecute and investigate the DuPont company over the sudden death of not one but 153 cows on his farm. Strangely, all of Mr. Wilbur's cows had passed with similar symptoms to the others, such as black teeth, discolored organs, and a condition called corneal opacity, which is similar to looking to river blindness disease. Mr. Wilbur also suspected that the part of his land that was sold to DuPont as landfill for non-toxic chemicals was one of the causes. Although Mr. Billet was skeptical about it as anyone else would be, he offered to investigate, and in doing so filed a small lawsuit on behalf of the farmer, only to gain access to DuPont's files. During Mr. Billet's investigations of the company records, he constantly came across a term called PFOA-C8, but nobody knew what it was. They had never heard of it, and surprisingly, even the Environmental Protection Agency, which is like the official environmental protection organization in the United States, didn't know what it was. In the few months to come, it was finally revealed that PFOA-C8 was a short-term name used for a chemical known as perfluorooctanoic acid, while the C8 was to signify the amount of linked carbon atoms in the chemical, all in which was used by DuPont to produce the Teflon product. PFOA was the main chemical used to produce Teflon, and it was very difficult to destroy. It was also discovered through Mr. Billet's investigations that this indestructible chemical was being dumped right into the river called the Ohio River that ran right by the DuPont plant. This made DuPont particularly evil, as they knew that this chemical was harmful to human and animal health. With the addition of this specific river that they were dumping in just so happens to be the freaking water source for 6 water districts in the area. This meant that thousands upon thousands of people were unknowingly bathing and drinking in water that was completely contaminated with an extremely toxic chemical. Why I mention extremely toxic is because when Mr. Billet was conducting his investigations from 1997 all the way to the early 2000s, documents of DuPont revealed that the company and the supplier company of the chemical known as 3M had conducted experiments with the chemical dating back all the way to the 1950s, in which showed clear links of the chemical to kidney cancer, testicular cancer, thyroid disease, high cholesterol, preeclampsia, ulcerative colitis, liver disease, and alterations of DNA. Wait, what? What does that mean? Well, back in 1981, a group of 50 women working at the plant on the chemical line were, open quote, reassigned, close quote, as DuPont were made aware of the effects of the chemical to the genome. Unfortunately, however, these women already had the chemical in their system, and one of those women gave birth to a baby named Bucky Bailey. As a result of the chemical, Mr. Bailey was born with deformities such as a single nostril and a keyhole pupil where his iris and retina did not connect. All of these effects were completely hidden by DuPont and was never reported to the Environmental Protection Agency. After these countless revelations, Mr. Billet had launched 3 lawsuits against DuPont with the help of the Environmental Protection Agency. However, Mr. Billet was still fought by DuPont. These guys legitimately poisoned thousands, and they still fought back, saying that the water contamination did not exceed the safety guideline that was set by themselves. You heard right, which of course was a wackadoodle statement, taking into the fact that the contamination was not only above their proclaimed safety level, but there were also clear signs that people were getting sick. Rob Billet faced a lot of difficult moments, as everyone from his hometown was dependent on him to solve this mystery, which he ultimately did. DuPont was lying. They were the supervillain who hid in plain sight. Unfortunately, justice was not exactly served cold. The craziest thing that over this 20-year legal battle, DuPont had only paid approximately $1 billion in fees out of their multi-billion-dollar annual revenue. Safe to say that they really did not pay the price for it. If you had to determine, did the people and Rob Billet win? Absolutely. I believe so. DuPont was outed, and the people got compensation and peace of mind when DuPont agreed to stop dumping the chemical. But did DuPont lose? No, they didn't. To this day, DuPont is still very much undefeated. But Robert Billet was the hero we needed, a man that went against a corporate supervillain and fought for the rights of the people of not only his hometown, but the whole world. But not to worry, because our Superman is still fighting, and will continue for as long as there is need for a hero. As we have reached the end, it is estimated that since the production of Teflon began, DuPont has dumped approximately 2 million pounds of the chemical PFOAC8 into the Ohio River and has been responsible for the contamination of 98% of the American public. Traces of the contamination all over the world continue to be found. If you wish to know more, do check out the new movie starring Mark Ruffalo titled Dark Waters, and Robert Billet's book titled Exposure, Poison Water, Corporate Greed, and One Lawyer's 20-Year Battle Against DuPont. Thank you, and let me know in the comments about room for improvements, like if you enjoyed my storytelling abilities, and subscribe if you want to. On a side note, I will be leaving a timestamp of the event in the description